Hello and welcome. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Thanks for joining us on this special episode of the NewsX Business World panels on the Indian economy. Today, we're going to be focusing on how to get business and economy back. Yes, we're being faced by extremely unprecedented times. The lockdown, of course, has rendered a lot of growth, which has actually gone into contraction phase. How do we get that back though? Back on track, and of course back to the path of fast progress for our country, for our corporates, and of course for our industry. That's what's going to be our big focus over the course of the next 1 hour. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. Thanks for joining us. We have, as always, a power-packed panel. Joining us today is Ninad Karpe. He is partner 100x.vc. Dr. Neeru Kumar also with us, founder Ask Insights. We have Amit Bhagwan Vadvani also joining us. He's managing director of Sai Estate Consultants Chembur, and co-founder of Sai Estate Management and Skills Institute. We also have Sumit Mehlawat, corporate credit expert, who's joining us live. Dr. Vikas Singh is live with us as well, founder Crux Management. Seema Prem, co-founder and CEO FIA Global, also joins the panel. And Dr. Anurag Batra, founder and editor-in-chief of Business World and Exchange for Media Group, is with us as always as well. Welcome all of you. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin with you first. Ninadji, your opening comments on how you believe we will get business and the economy back on track. What role does government have in getting it back on track? And what role do corporates themselves have in getting growth?
Thank you for inviting me. I'm delighted to be here. Government has to play a critical role in the economy coming back. They have given a fiscal and monetary stimulus. Put together, they have said it is 10% of GDP. But let me talk about the positive side. What can happen? What can be done? I think there is a need to spur demand in the economy, and that can be spurred in a couple of ways. One is, of course, the GST rates, to my mind, of 18% are very high. One has to reduce the GST rates so that consumption can be spurred. There are a slew of measures which can happen on consumer credit, on reduction of tax rates, direct, indirect, to spur consumption. That's on the consumption side. On helping the industrialists or the economy, one small thing can happen is there is going to be financial stress in the economy and in the industry because of borrowings, and obviously people are going through stress. So not just deferrals of credit, but there has to be some other way in which credit can be totally waived out, of either converted to equity or some other way. From the industrialist perspective, or people in the economy, or people running businesses, this is a moment for resilience. They have to hang in there. They have to believe the India story. It is going to bounce back. It's just a matter of time. This is the interval. Show is not over.
I just want to ask you that, there is a real fear that the revenues of startups have gone to zero or close to zero, depending on what industry you are in. And second, the startups haven't been able to raise capital, most startups. Do you see in the next 60 days some of these startups folding up?
So startups are in two categories, one which are really adversely affected by COVID problem, and some which have really benefited. For example, EdTech, healthcare, and let's say travel tourism are adversely. So for early stage, there's no problem. So you've got a bright new idea, the people chasing ideas. Yes, at Series B, Series C, there are issues of funding, but I believe the 60 days, 90 days, if they hang in there, if they figure out a method by ensuring that they remain alive for next 60, 90 days, it will bounce back. It is certainly bounce back. There is enormous interest, enormous money waiting in the wings to invest in startups.
Okay, Dr. Neeru Kumar, why don't you come in here now? Dr. Kumar, on of course, your opening comments on how you believe the economy can rebound, how growth can return for corporate India, and what role should government play in all of this, and what onus is on corporates and entrepreneurs themselves?
So Ninad just spoke about resilience, and being a doctor and a mental health professional, I think to keep the morale of everybody really high, because panic is something which is going to cost a lot on the mental health, and the expense on mental health itself can increase. Not having enough infrastructure on the medical units, that can cause really an increase in the disease pattern. So I think the government keeping the morale high, the leaders are also heroes. We call the doctors heroes, but the corporate leaders are also heroes who have to keep that resilience factor on in everybody so that we don't have another additional expense on the mental health.
Okay, Dr. Kumar, we talk of GDP, we talk of, demand coming back, we talk of liquidity. We don't talk of happiness when we talk of the economy. We don't talk of mental well-being when we talk of economy. Do you think it's time to bring these aspects back into the conversation, because the mental health of a person is directly related to productivity, which then contributes to the GDP?
Yes, absolutely. Do you know that there are 12 billion work days annually which are absences because of mental health issues, and $1 trillion annually spent on mental health? And the trend and prediction even before COVID times was that this is going to increase by 2025 to this mental health becoming the second largest disability in the world. Now with COVID times, this is going to phenomenally increase, and if we don't take care of that, we'll be losing a large chunk, and that's where economy is going to be. It's going to be a blind spot for the economy, and it's going to take a large dip over there.
Okay, that's a valid point. Let's take that to Mr. Wadhwani. Mr. Wadhwani, come in here on your opening comments, of course, and how you believe, in your views, growth can return, the economy can come back to robustness, and how this India success story can once again resume.
Hey, thank you. Great to be on the show. But we are running 3 businesses out of multiple cities, over 50 cities in the country today. Apart from the credit lines and money reaching the 20 lakh crore MSME package, which most of the critics say is not reaching the right pockets. But I do know a few promoters and business owners who have acknowledged that we have received the monies, provided they have ensured that the last 2 or 3 years track record is fine. We all need to understand that the banks also need to be fit. You can't really expect an unfit bank which is incurred losses in the last 2 years with rising NPAs to render the 20 lakh crore relief package to MSMEs. So that is another rider, which the fine print which we need to understand. Another trend that I'm seeing is more than the money and the revenues. It's also about people. So we have close to about 700 people in the network. At this point in time, it is extremely important to keep your people together. Really not pushing them to meet targets. Really not really pushing sales, pushing post sales or pre-sales and expect the revenues to flow. Because please understand that everybody is fighting about saving your life. It's like the games that we do on the internet. It's like you saving yourself and me saving my family. So we need to understand that our employees, our vendors, our partners, the entire ecosystem is also going through a phase where everybody is uncertain about what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And I don't think we need to judge the ball while it comes onto the bat immediately. We can do that in the next couple of months. So it's time where leaders can show a little bit of solidarity and tell your guys that, you know what, I am with you. We are resourceful. I believe that the government will do enough. I believe that, next 2-3 months, we will focus on improving our skills, sharpening our skills, and ensuring that we stick together as a team, So I strongly believe that, yes, money will come in as long as your paperwork is fine. Your banks will support you. You can look at the MSME guidelines. But once your team is broken, it is going to be extremely difficult. And one last point here, people who have lost jobs in the last 4 months are the ones who were low on efficacy, were the ones who were low on proficiency, and the companies any which ways did not want such kind of employees are the people who have lost jobs. So employers who feel that there are too many people who will come and work with you at lower wages and salaries could be wrong, because the good talent I know in the last 4 months have negotiated some good deal and in fact have also backed some sort of an appreciation in their CTCs. So these are few changing dynamic trends we need to look at.
Amit, you've been very positive and real. I want to ask you, me and Uday have been asking this question on the show, that while the government will do its bit, do you think entrepreneurs should use this time to reimagine, recalibrate, pivot? So can you tell us what you are doing with your business, for example?
Right. So that's like a full toss, and I must thank you for this sweet full toss. But the point is that our growth has been inversely proportional to the path that the virus has been taking. So we run the prop tech business, which is booming because people are not really coming out. So everybody wants everything on the internet. We run an edtech business, and we have also found investments from a leading Bollywood businessman amidst COVID-19. We've got a couple of term sheets. So for us as a tech-based company or a group that does tech-based businesses, it's been fantastic. But let me tell you that I am a very aggressive sales guy. I'm like the Rocket Singh of the movie, Rocket Singh you all saw. But I have taken 2 steps back, and I don't really put the kind of pressure, not on my bank, not on my people, not on my vendors. I'm not really looking at revenues. I'm ready to forget the last 6 months.
And not on yourself.
Yes. So I have, in fact, my popularity has grown. I don't ask questions about whether we do about 80,000 calls a day, and now we are doing 30,000 calls. We used to sell stock worth 40 crores a week, and now we are doing, say, 15 crores a week. All those things, at least a straight talk, even if you feel like, really pushing the team, this is the time. I think people matter. So you will have to take a
Okay, so that's a good voice coming in from corporate India itself, saying that right now employees is your focus, employee well-being is your focus, and people matter. The people impact is bigger than the economic impact of the current situation. We'll examine that later as well. But Sumit Mehlawat, let me get you in here. Ms. Mehlawat, your first take on how the economy can rebound, on how we can get growth back on track, and what role government has in all of this as well.
I think the government has 3 important roles as I see it. One very critical in these times is the survival. How do you ensure survival? Rest, everything comes later. In survival, I think government has done a very good job as far as the most affected people are concerned, or as most affected section of our society is concerned, be it MSMEs, be it poor people. I think, and what most of the people do not talk about is that there is already a 6-month moratorium to everybody, whether it's an individual, whether you are rich, you are poor, whoever you are, a large corporate, a MSME. And now I think the government, as we all read in paper, is seriously contemplating doing a one-time restructuring of the loan, which will be a very, very welcome move, because one, it helps everybody. Second, also, I think it helps banks to not let their balance sheet be affected, because they are already in a very, very vulnerable state. So this was one, survival. I think second role that the government can play is in demand revival. I think the government should do more over there, but I think they will do more, because this is not a static situation that we are in. This is an ever evolving situation. The economy has started opening up in phases. The demand has started coming back. People have started getting normal with the new normal. So I think the government is also waiting and watching and seeing how much needs to be done, because in a country like ours with finite resources, we can do limited, and that limited has to be, I think very directed. So this was point 2, and I think the government will come up with more on the demand revival thing. I think the third and the most critical thing is the reform. To get the demand and investment and growth back on track for the long term. Once we are over this, and even before this all hit us, economy was going through a slow, muted growth time. So I think in this stimulus that they came up with, they have announced several reforms, be it land reform, labor reform, privatization. I think they could have done more in terms of financial sector reforms, but nevertheless, I think what they have announced is great. I think the whole key now is that they must quickly come up with the framework to execute this in a very, very thoughtful manner. Because I think if the government take these next 12 to 18 months where the whole world is going to be dealing with COVID-19, we can really, really set up a platform which is truly brilliant and conducive to growth. I think these are the 3 roles that the government can play. as far as individuals, corporates, MSME, anyone. I think our role in these times is, as Mr. Anurag was mentioning, to recalibrate, to reinvent ourselves. Like for some of us, that would mean if you're a large corporate, you have a sound balance sheet, you are not levered, would you look at consolidation opportunities? Yes, good time to look at that. For someone who's levered, instead of looking at banks and looking at everywhere, would you, if you are in a solid business, would you look at raising equities, at a right valuation, and you will not be greedy? For some of us, like I think adapting to change, learning to adapt to change, because we are, this is a new normal, and I think with the way the world is.
I don't call it normal, Sumit. I call it the new abnormal. I call it the new abnormal. There's nothing normal about it.
Yes, and I think this is what the world will be. Today it's virus. After 5 years, I mean, most of the jobs, most of the way we have seen corporates growing, it will not remain the same. The world is changing at a pace that we can't even believe, and this is a good time for all of us to become adaptable, truly adaptable, and reinvent ourselves.
We'll come back to you, but you alluded to demand, and liquidity is an issue. How do you, while reforms and everything the government is doing is little medium term, long term, and I know in July, August, the government will do more on spending on infrastructure, and it will spend its way to make sure the economy is back. But how do you bring liquidity back fast, beyond the government spending? Is there any other way?
So I think there are two things that you are touching upon. There is enough liquidity in the system, but is that liquidity reaching the corporates, the MSME, the public at large? The answer is no. And that is that, I mean, the banks have enough liquidity. They are parking enough with RBI. But I think we need to carry out financial sector reform, because there's a confidence crisis. There are a lot of corporates which are highly leveraged. Banks are not comfortable lending to them. So, and also, I think along with financial sector reforms, the government needs to look at resolution in some of the highly stressed sectors. That will start the ball rolling, because it's a chicken and egg situation. NBFCs, be it real estate, be it infrastructure, we need to solve those issues. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Vikas Singh, you run a consulting firm. You're also a columnist with BW Business World, and you work on innovation. Tell us, how do you think the economy can be brought back, and what's your response to the economic stimulus?
So, I think the government doesn't really need to look further than 4 areas where it should work on. As the previous speaker was saying, that the demand creation is the most important thing. India's economy is consumer-led. Close to about 2/3 of our economy is dependent on consumption, and the demand is the first step that the government should do, and it can't be doing it by creating the 20 lakh crore stimulus, because I think that's not directed well. All that the government needs to do is put some money into the hands of the consumers. Our estimate is that even if the government puts in, let's say, 10,000 crores for the next 3 months into the households of the poorest 20% of Indians, it will cost the government less than 0.5% of the GDP. That will create the demand and will fuel the virtuous cycle of demand, which will bring in the investment and which will bring the growth. The second thing that the government should do is to support the MSMEs. The previous speaker was rightly saying that there is liquidity into the system, but liquidity is missing with the MSMEs. The government has been talking about asking the banks to lend to the MSMEs. Why would somebody want to invest in the economy where there is no demand? The best way to provide the liquidity to the MSME sector, and it may not be lost to your viewers here, that the government and the government-owned institutions still owe close to about 3 lakh crores to the MSMEs. And this is the project that the MSMEs have already completed, but the government hasn't paid. All that the government needs to do is a direction from the Prime Minister's office that 70% of all the projects that's been completed needs to be paid out. That itself will bring in about 15 to 20% liquidity into the hands of the MSMEs. The second thing, and this will require the Finance Minister to come out with a very holistic package, is why should the MSMEs and small industries pay GST when they raise the invoice? The GST can be paid when they receive the payment. That alone will bring in another 10% of liquidity. The third thing, and I think if I'm not driving too hard for the MSME sector, is that the tax deducted at source can easily be returned to them. Anyway, the government collects taxes. When the MSME sector is in a doldrums, the government should come forward, and so that will bring in the kind of liquidity that the industry needs. The third
I
thing,
think some very constructive suggestions there also given by Vikas and by Sumit, on what still they expect the government to do. So of course, corporate India, entrepreneurs themselves also have a role in getting business and growth back on track, and we've covered that as well. But also government has an onus, and government has done a bit so far, but more needs to be done. And some very constructive suggestions, of course, coming in today on the show. Let's hope these sort of interactions continue between industry and government in the days ahead as well. Let's bring in. We'll come back to you, Vikas, but let's bring in Seema Prem as well at this point on her opening comments. Seema, on what you believe the government, what your expectations of the government are, how much have been fulfilled through the financial stimulus package which came out earlier in the year, and what more needs to be done to get growth back. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so I work primarily at the bottom of the pyramid. So we distribute financial services to the underserved in India and Nepal. So to that extent, I think the stimulus package was, of course, very welcome. And we saw cash going into the hands of people who needed it the most, the poorest and the most vulnerable. So from that extent, yes, I think the government has done an excellent job, and they have also leveraged the large digital banking infrastructure of the banks to ensure that the cash reached without any leakages and in a seamless manner to the last mile. Right, but I think the biggest problem right now is that though a lot has been done on the monetary side, there's not a lot which has been done on the demand revival side, and that's where the government and RBI has to play a big role. Like Sumit was mentioning about the fact that it's about demand generation right now. So yes, you have a street vendor. There is a scheme for the street vendor where the government is saying, please, telling the banks, go ahead and give them 10,000 rupees as loans. But what is the point in giving them credit guarantee or a loan if there is no demand for their products? So then there is no income. And if there is no income, they will not be able to pay back the loans. So then the bad books of the bank increases and this vicious cycle just continues. So that is one. Second is that if you look at the MSMEs, there's been a lot spoken about the MSMEs. There are about 6 crores MSMEs in the country, but only about, I think, 10 to 15% of them actually get loans from the public sector banks. Remaining are largely credit invisible, women entrepreneurs, and a lot of not even micro entrepreneurs, people who employ 1 or 2 people. Right? So how are they going to get loans in a very paper-driven, credit score-driven model? So I think RBI has to fundamentally go ahead and disrupt the way currently lending is done to MSMEs and say that it has to be an automated, paperless, and single-day sanction, a 10-minute sanction process, which all public sector banks, rural banks, cooperative banks have to embrace and enable quickly. Only then would you see that, yes, the loans, the large scheme which has been announced by the government goes to the remaining, 5 crore MSMEs who are not getting the loans which they require. Second, from a demand generation standpoint, you have to put cash into the hands of people. I'm not in for tax breaks to individuals because I think individuals are spending a lot of time saving the money. So even if you give them tax break, they're going to go and save, which you can see in the corresponding deposits of banks which have gone up. So there must be some other creative ways that the government has to think about to actually give, money back to people. I think the US government has done an excellent job there, right? They said, go spend and we will give you rebate. Okay, so I buy a car and maybe I get such an incentive from the government that I am incentivized enough to actually buy a car. So these are some kind of incentives which the government has to focus on. Now, from a corporate standpoint, I think we corporates have a responsibility. We should not be letting go of employees right now. I know it is not easy. It is not easy for all of us to say that, yes, especially when your revenues are down to 0. But I think we need to go down deep into our reserves and ensure that if we are able to retain 100% of our employees, till the pandemic is over, I think that's a big win for the corporates itself. And I think that's an area which corporates have a huge responsibility and role to play.
Okay, so if they expect help from the government, if they expect incentives to be given to them from the government, then they also need to play their role in helping employees, helping citizens of our country.
I want to make a quick comment. I know we have to take a break. Is that, there is, as Seema Prem just said, that the consumer or the citizen is saving money because the sentiment is weak. So the government has to look at reviving the sentiment. There is a genuine fear of going out and doing business, going to the office, going to the mall. So the government is at some stage to be able to tackle that fear to get the sentiment back. Because, today employees are saving more because they're not spending on going out, they're not spending on travel, they're not spending on discretionary things, they're only spending. So actually the savings have gone up. You look at the saving deposits of banks. So the government's role comes in giving comfort and taking the fear factor away to bring the sentiment of normalcy back, or some kind of normalcy.
Before I hand it over to Dr. Batra once again, let me quickly bring in Dr. Neeru Kumar on that aspect of employee well-being. Because Dr. Neeru Kumar, many at this point are, of course, saying that yes, there is an economic impact, but human impact should be put at the forefront, and that's certainly what Mr. Wadhwani is doing at his group. That's certainly what others on our panel are also doing. And Seema also made the point that corporates also have the onus not to, effect layoffs right now, not to penalize employees too much for not paying salaries completely, and these mass layoffs and mass salary cuts at this point. If they have expectations from the government, then even government expects something from them, which is why we saw that advisory earlier on over layoffs and over, of course, wages and whatnot. So do you believe the human impact must also be put forth at this point, Dr. Kumar, at a time when our country is having these conversations on mental health, A, because of the lockdown, and B, because of this tragic incident of Sushant Singh Rajput as well recently?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll bring in a very technical term here called post-traumatic stress disorder. So whenever PTSD, so if you have a trauma like this one, if you've undergone COVID yourself or seen a close one undergoing COVID, then the trauma that settles in the unconscious mind can have a very, very long-term impact, That needs to be prevented on what are the inputs going into the brain right now, where leaders and the government can inspire something which we call positive psychology. So when we make efforts to have enough professionals to be able to address that. In fact, what I've been suggesting lately is an integrative medicine approach. It is time that all specialists of different specialities come in together rather than saying that is something apart from my own discipline. So if we're talking about mental health, we're talking about spiritual health, we're talking about medical health. All these, we're talking about holistic health, energy-based healings. All these now need to come together to be able to support each other, know a little bit about each other's discipline for the complete well-being of the individual. Leaders must be equipped with that. Even general practitioners must be equipped with that. When a patient comes to a general practitioner, he need not refer him to a mental health specialist. He needs to have some bit of that knowledge of positive psychology and mental health himself to be able to, that this is a touch point, let's optimize this touch point so that the positive well-being is really being infused in a mass scale, in a large population.
Throughout these discussions, it has boiled down to 2 points. One is demand and the other is sentiment, because as Sumit said, there is enough liquidity as you can. There is money, but it's not being given out. So in that sense, the liquidity. So I want to start by asking Dr. Vikas Singh, how do you get the demand back? You've already given some suggestion, and I take the same question to all the panelists.
I think the best way to get the demand back is to put money into the hands of the poor. As somebody was saying that people are saving money, but the poor don't save money. Poor spend close to about 95% of whatever they earn or whatever they have. So that's one way. The second way is that the government must start investing. Government must lead the investment cycle. Government can't expect the corporate sector to invest because they are tight-fisted at this stage of the economic cycle. Expecting them to invest is expecting too much. The best way for the government to invest is to choose the sector that it wants to invest in. It must invest in the rural infrastructure sector. Even here, I would strongly advise the government to focus on completing the projects that are underway and not start new projects, because a completed project is a value driver and is an economic driver. There's no point in starting a project, because the normal cycle of a project completion is about 3 to 4 years. At this stage of the economy, we need projects that are completed, because once the project is complete, it starts providing the support, starts providing the infrastructure, and is a value driver. The third thing that the government must look at is target the subsidy or target the stimulus that it has announced into the right hands. We've heard people talking about the banks are willing to give loan, the people are not coming forward to take loan. How can they? The government is addressing the supply side rather than the demand side. And the only way to create the demand is to focus on the demand rather than supply. So the stimulus package should be focused towards kicking the demand, and the best way to do it is to put money into the hands of the poor, support the MSME sector, and I think that should be good enough for a start. At a later point, maybe 3 months down the line, 4 months down the line, when the economy is running at about 70%, 80% capacity, the government needs to start looking at some monetary incentives as well, but not at this point of time. The fiscal stimulus is what the government needs to provide in this economy.
Thank you. Ninad, apart from the question of bringing the demand back, what are the sectors that private equity and venture capital or early stage investors are looking at? Of course, some are given. Give us a peek into what are the new sectors that present an opportunity or a silver lining in this time.
So, I think never waste a good crisis is Winston Churchill, but all of us believe in it. You've always been an optimist, Anurag. There are sectors which are, going to really do well. And it is triggered by a combination of factors. Let me talk for just 60 seconds about agriculture. This crisis has provided government to push reforms in agriculture, agri-marketing, land reforms, labor. So they were never touched. All these put together, there's a huge opportunity in the first mile and the last mile. People have been focusing more on the last mile opportunity in startups, but the first mile also is important. And then the food processing. So agri sector is going to see a huge... And
because agri sector, interestingly, Ninadji, just to interject here, has actually recorded growth through this time as well. In fact, it's been one of the contributors to output, at this point of time. And also, the sizable proportion of our country agriculturists as well.
So unlike other countries where innovation is driven a lot in universities and colleges, which are funded by private companies, in India, fortunately, unfortunately, I would say fortunately, we have to rely on startups for innovation. There has to be focus because these young startup entrepreneurs are good. So one is agriculture, second is education. Education is a sector, it's a social sector. It's a huge place for startups to invest. The entire education sector has been slow in adopting technology. They're today forced to embrace it. They have no choice. So education. Third is food processing, which is part of agriculture. But more importantly, we can also talk about sectors connected to national security. All
cyber security. Cyber security is a big sector coming.
And healthcare.
Cyber security will be as ubiquitous as water. Like, when you're doing more and more transaction online, as an individual, you will also need to look at tools that protect you. I want to come to you, Sumit. One of the big things that has been discussed over the last few weeks is actually about whether the government should print more money or not, whether the government should be worried about the credit rating agencies and, not worry about the fiscal stimulus. What do you have to say to that, Sumit?
I think why do you need money printing if you are trying to do more on the monetary side or even on the, I think as of now, I think with whatever liquidity we have in the system and with however RBI is managing it, with even if we increase the fiscal stimulus, we still do not need RBI printing more money. We haven't reached that stage. Even with whatever increased stimulus we can give on the fiscal side, I think having said so, this is unprecedented time. So government giving more fiscal stimulus, I think at this point in time should be okay. More on the reforms, more on the demand building, how the demand and economy can be revived in short term and in long term. What all needs to be done. And if it's done in a thoughtful manner, I think no rating agency is going to hold us responsible that we spent irresponsibly on fiscal stimulus. So as long as we can explain and as long as we are doing it in a thoughtful and rightful manner, I think this should be good.
Okay. Amit Wadhwani, Uday asked you right up front, what can the entrepreneurs do? You talked about their responsibility. You talked about, using technology to kind of triumph. Tell us, if your revenues are not doing well, you're not being able to get new funding, how does the entrepreneur survive? Hope is not a plan.
Right. So, I've been believer of the fact that COVID-19 has disrupted businesses, but I see a lot of business any which way is not doing very well, right? So pre-COVID also, if somebody was not able to service EMIs for 3 months, is looking at COVID as, a unique situation like a bailout package where you don't get to pay your EMIs for 6 months. And then you start defaulting the 7th month also because you are any which way is not doing it in 2019 as well. So we need to really distinguish the men from the boys. And because of this relief package and everybody really saying that, my business is COVID affected.
But in the startup world, boys do better than the men. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, we
and
possibly
girls
come
do
to
better
that.
than the women. I must add, girls do better than the women.
Yeah, so we've seen that at the Women Economic Forum that happens every year in Delhi, and very, very, very encouraging. I agree with you.
How do you manage with no funding?
So I'm coming to that. So I feel that Indian businesses, however micro, small or large, need to understand whether I should be in business or no. So I need to understand whether I should be doing what I've been doing for the last 10 years, irrespective of the vintage. You need to understand whether we need to really go digital, and not everything can be tech. We talk about agriculture and food and everything. It makes no sense to, really talk about tech when it comes to the food industry if you're not growing any grains and there's no demand for it. So I feel that we need to introspect and understand whether we need credit and whether we will actually burn public money and default the 7th month from today also. Secondly, on the employee front, I had a little bit of an observation. It's not about salaries that they are tensed. I think most of the employees are smarter than the entrepreneurs. We mortgage almost everything that we have to get bank credits, but the employees play it a little smarter. It is the communication. The most promoters are not speaking to their employees. We need more webinars, more town halls where the owner of the company, the promoters of the company need to come and say, I will not be able to pay you. I will pay you 50% or I will pay you next month. And you will see some huge support coming in. It is not lack of credit. I would like to believe there is liquidity even amongst the poor people or people who are in the 3 to 5 lakh CTC annually. But I want more promoters, more, the management to come out and clearly communicate that this is what I can do and this is what can be done. This is what,
Seema Prem, again, the government has been very sensitive to the bottom of the pyramid. And one of the criticism of the package is that, it's good for the vote bank, but the people who make the economy, who create the GDP have been left out. What do you have to say to that?
Yeah, so I think to a large extent, yes. They have focused on the farmers, they have focused on the elderly, they have focused on women and only women who have Jandan accounts, right? So there is definitely some amount of exclusion there. So I do believe that the government needs to extend the package, right? I think about 120 million people have lost jobs, right? About 90% of them are daily wage earners. The rest are salaried class, right? So that has led to a crash in the demand as well, right? When you have about 120 million people losing jobs. So one that the government needs to do is keep on extending this package which it is given, which is giving cash into the hands of the poor, but expand the concept of poor to include a lot larger, segment of people. And just because you do not have a Jan Dhan account does not mean that you should not be eligible for any relief package on part of the government. And there are ways that the current package and the stimulus package has. For example, they have MSME loans to the MSMEs. Why don't you make it conditional that yes, the loans would be given provided you ensure that you have so many employees on your payrolls and you pay them salary for the next 6 months to 1 year. Right. And if you do so, at the end, maybe the government can forgive the loan. That itself will ensure that some of the people who have lost their jobs.
That's what happened. That's what Canadian government.
The US. And that's what happened in the US.
Correct. So the US Small Business Administration has done that. So I don't see currently the loans to the MSMEs having any such conditions, right? Or the loans actually reaching all of the MSMEs. So there are structural issues with the way the loans package is itself distributed, and the government needs to, more than the government, I think it's the RBI and the banks who need to quickly address that.
I was just going to go to Sumit Melawat at that point. Sumit, what should the RBI do as well? Because the RBI has also been taking certain moves since this pandemic started, since the lockdown started, to infuse liquidity, to do their bit. What more do they need to do?
So I think on a couple of points where bank were to be the medium to distribute money either in the form of loans or whatever. I think one is restructuring, or I wouldn't say restructuring, but giving moratorium. Whoever required it for 6 months or whoever applied got it. Second thing, I think for MSMEs, if you're talking about, there was a 3 lakh crore collateral-free, 100% government-backed credit, which was available to MSMEs. It is such an easy cakewalk that if you applied it online, every bank is giving it. They aren't stopping anything. They aren't asking questions. As long as you meet all the criteria, it's being given to you. However, on the other parts, where the banks have liquidity, and say, for example, a large corporate would go because there is no scheme that is being offered by the government or the RBI for them. The banks will be very cautious because they are taking a very conservative approach in seeing the balance sheet strength of that corporate and then give out credit. And I don't see any harm in it because I think for most banks, they have to be like a smart businessman. On the liability side, they are taking your money in your saving accounts, your current accounts, and they are liable to pay you back. And they have to judicially put that money in assets, which is lending to all the borrowers, be it individual, corporate, whoever. So they cannot and they should not give money wherever it is unviable. So be it a corporate, be it here, they are giving MSME loans without even looking at their balance sheets any further because the government has given 100% guarantee. So whatever the government and RBI had asked them to do, that all is happening, where they are not putting anything at stake. But wherever they have to do their own individual assessment, that is happening as per merit, and they are very cautious and conservative about it.
At this point, let us ask all the panelists, what is their view on the economy in the next 90 to 120 days? In the medium term and the long term, we know that the Indian economy will be back, hopefully bigger, better, and grow at hopefully rates that we can't imagine now. But where do you see the economy 3 to 4 months from now? We start with you, Amit Wadhwani.
Right. So, one point, I'll come to that, but what Sumit was trying to make about the MSME, one hindrance that I see with the businesses borrowing, it has a clause that says 20% of your outstanding amount as on Feb of 2020. Most of the small microbes have not done any business with any of the banks. And with this tsunami of COVID-19, they are first time credit seekers, So people who like us, when we had maybe an outstanding of few crores, we availed of the facility. But what about majority of the people who did not have any banking relationships. So maybe the government possibly can do something about somebody who did not have an outstanding Feb 2020. And I agree with you there, when the banks have to behave like a profit-making organization. But very surprisingly, the RBI has looked at funding people who have exhausted funds as on February 2020 and giving them 20% of the money that they have exhausted, but really don't have anything for somebody who has not exhausted any credit. And you understand the point I'm trying to make here. So yeah. So and
valid point.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm afraid we can't stress more now on this. I know Sumit, you also want to react, but let's get to our closing segment.
So I feel that people who've believed in their teams, people who have ensured that whether we like GST or we don't like GST, whether we like TDS or no, have ensured that the last 3 years we have met compliances, we have paid our EMIs on time, we've kept our teams together, and we have created businesses which attract a lot of revenue, if not a lot of revenue, at least a steady demand in the market. We'll see this sabbatical of 6 months of COVID-19, say from March to August, September, as a reboot, right? And intelligent business owners have already started gaining a lot. My venture capitalist friend can add on to that. There's a lot of money coming in.
No, but where's the economy going? Where do you see it
I feel it's going to be.
In 30 seconds,
I feel this is going to be polarized. We will do a lot of cleanup for companies with no demand, and on the other end of the spectrum, you will have companies doing exceedingly well, where you see better financial practices and hygiene.
Do you see the economy overall doing better?
No, I don't see the economy really doing better for the next 12 months if you look at it from a holistic, pan-India GDP level. But it can be polarized with 70-80% of the businesses completely destroyed.
Okay. Let's take that to Dr. Neeru Kumar. Dr. Neeru Kumar, go ahead.
Yes, before I say that, I'm very tempted to say a quick thing. We were talking about women. There are a large number of women who have been on maternity break and have never come back. I think getting those women back into the system and making them productive again will bring more economy to the family and into the whole system. So if such kind of ventures start happening, then economy can take a sudden rise in an innovative way. Apart from that, I agree with Amit, there's going to be a polarization.
And just to add to Dr. Neeru Kumar, today flexi working will become the norm.
Absolutely.
So women can actually work from home without feeling that they are disadvantaged.
Absolutely.
That's the only silver lining I see, so to say.
Yeah.
Seema Prem.
So I think the situation is very grim, right? COVID cases are on the rise, right? The state governments are going for lockdowns, limited lockdowns. Chennai has, Gurgaon is in fact announcing. So what happens is that the demand which had come back once the lockdown had eased, now you'll see the demand going down because nobody is out buying anything. And second, you also have supply getting impacted, right? Because lockdown does interrupt your supply chains, right? And so production is also going to be impacted. So the situation for the next 1 year is definitely grim.
Vikas Singh.
I'm very optimistic. I think we will do better than most people think. I think the economy is going to get into a V-shaped recovery. India is a very fragile economy, but our fragility itself provides us great strength in the sense of recovery. For example, most of the employees who are working in the unorganized sector are low-income wage earners. So getting them back into the mainstream will not be very difficult. Second thing, as I was saying, that India is a consumer-led economy. So if the demand can be created, the recovery is very near. Just one thing, in a joking manner, I'm going to say, Amit was talking about bank. My experience with the banking sector is that if you want a loan from the bank, you have to first prove that you don't need it. The minute they know you don't.
Very true. Yeah.
This is the challenge that the government needs to recognize, that the loan should be given to people who need the loan, people who are willing to invest in the economy, people who are going to. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. But one last bit about the Moody's rating and the fixed rate rating. I'm not too concerned about the rating downgrade, but I'm really concerned about the commentary of the rating agencies. The commentary, the key words that have been used in their note is that the implementation, the government's ability to implement reform is questionable. And I think that worries me. The government needs to make sure that whatever reforms or whatever they announce, they must be able to implement it. Otherwise, everything looks very, very fizzy. Everything looks nice when the finance minister comes and announces things. Everybody starts feeling happy. But at the ground level, it hasn't translated into action. And that's my concern. Rating agencies or rating downgrades or not is not a concern at this point of time. But the government needs to put its act together and ensure that things are implemented on the ground. But I'm very, very optimistic. 12 months down the line, if we have a
so you struck an optimistic note. Sumit Mehla.
I think in next 3-4 months, though I am an optimist, eternal optimist, but I actually think that in next 3-4 months, we are going to see a worse time than what we are seeing now, because a lot of businesses which are holding up now may not be able to hold up. The cases are still rising. There is, unless the government comes up with something which changes, as Mr. Anurag was saying, that as something which can bring back the feel-good factor, that demand push for the short term, it's going to remain worse. I think we are going to improve in next 12 to 18 months, and if the reforms are carried out in a timely and thoughtful manner, I think in 12 to 18 months we can really start a investment-led culture which will be very good for the long-term demand. But in 3-4 months, unless something drastic happens from the government side, it's going to be worse. Thank you.
Now, Kape.
So Anurag, and I'll divide my thing in 2 parts: up to 120 days and beyond 120 days. Up to 120 days, I'm cautiously optimistic, and after that, I'm optimistic. Both the underlying situation is, I believe in Indian ingenuity to come out of problems. It's a will. So I'll tell you 3 reasons why after 120 days I'm optimistic. Number 1, I feel pent-up demand will suddenly come in the economy. You'll see huge amount, it's called revenge buying, whatever we call it. Pent-up demand will grow. In the agri sector, we're hoping of good monsoons. The sector is adopting to technology, and agricultural reforms are happening. Government is pushing hard on marketing reform. And the third part is supply chains moving to India. Will there be a large number? May not be. Even if it's a small number or mid-size, it will make a big change. And the underlying factor is petroleum prices will remain soft for a long time. It's a huge tailwind for India. All this put together, after 120 days, the economy will certainly grow more than 6%. It has been growing in the 4 to 6% range for the last so many years. It is going to go upwards of that. So 120 days is my period.
So the recovery will happen. There will be good times ahead. But for the time being, it's time to stay happy, to be safe, of course, to be patient, but also to continue to be innovative at this extremely crucial juncture. My thanks to all of you for joining us on this particular special panel. Thanks to our viewers for watching as well. Goodbye for now.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.